The little girl ran straight through the crowd of reporters, security officers, and attorneys, stopping only inches from the billionaire's wheelchair. Her tiny voice cut through the silence like a knife. "Dad, please don't let them take me away." Every camera turned. Every conversation died. 80-year-old Charles Whitmore, founder of Whitmore Capital and one of the most respected investors in America, stared into the frightened blue eyes of a child he had never seen before. His hands trembled. The courtroom fell silent. Across the room, Charles's nephew, Daniel Whitmore, slowly stood. A nervous smile crossed his face before disappearing just as quickly. "Your Honor," Daniel said, forcing a laugh, "someone needs to remove this child. She's clearly confused." The little girl refused to move. She clutched a faded silver necklace so tightly her tiny fingers turned white. Charles noticed the pendant immediately. His heartbeat seemed to stop. There was only one necklace like that in the world. One. It had belonged to Emily, the daughter everyone believed had died 23 years earlier. Charles slowly leaned forward, unable to take his eyes off the necklace. "Young lady," he whispered gently, "what is your name?" "Lily." "And who gave you that necklace?" "My mommy." The courtroom became painfully quiet. Charles swallowed hard. "What was your mother's name?" The little girl looked down before answering. "Emily Whitmore." A loud objection exploded from Daniel. "This is insane. Emily died decades ago. Someone is manipulating this child." But Charles no longer heard him. His mind had traveled back 23 years to the rain-soaked night that destroyed his family forever. Emily had disappeared while driving home from college outside Denver. Her abandoned car was found beside a river. Despite months of searching, no body was ever recovered. Police eventually declared her dead. Charles never believed it completely. Not once. For years, he hired private investigators, detectives, and retired federal agents. Nothing. Eventually, even hope became too painful. His wife, Margaret, died 5 years later with Emily's photograph still resting beside her hospital bed. Charles buried himself in work. He built hospitals, funded scholarships, donated billions, but every success felt empty because the one person he wanted to share it with was gone. Now a frightened little girl stood before him wearing Emily's necklace. The judge adjusted her glasses. "Mr. Whitmore, do you recognize the evidence this child is presenting?" Charles answered without hesitation. "Yes." Daniel stepped forward immediately. "Uncle Charles, think carefully. Anyone could copy a necklace." Charles shook his head. "No." He pointed toward the pendant. "I commissioned it from a private jeweler in Boston on Emily's 16th birthday. The design was never sold again." Daniel's confident expression cracked for the first time. Lily reached into the pocket of her worn sweater. "I have something else." She pulled out an old photograph. The edges were torn. The colors had faded. It showed a smiling young woman holding a baby wrapped in a blue blanket. On the back, written in familiar handwriting, were 4 words. "For Dad. Someday you'll know." Charles stared at the photograph until the courtroom blurred around him. The young woman in the picture was unmistakably Emily. The smile, the eyes, the small scar above her eyebrow from a childhood bicycle accident. Every memory he had tried to bury suddenly returned. The judge ordered a brief recess while attorneys examined the evidence. Reporters rushed outside, sending headlines across the country before anyone knew the truth. Inside the courthouse, Charles sat quietly beside Lily, who held his hand without fear. "You look like my mommy described," Lily whispered. Charles looked at her carefully. "What did your mother tell you about me?" Lily opened her small backpack and removed a collection of letters tied with a ribbon. They were old, carefully preserved, and addressed to Charles. "Mommy wrote them every year," Lily said. "She said one day you needed to know." The first letter changed everything. Emily had survived the accident. She had not died beside the river. A truck driver had found her injured and taken her to a hospital hours away. When she woke up, doctors discovered she had severe memory loss. Without identification and with no clear recollection of her past, Emily began rebuilding her life under a different name. Months later, pieces of her memory returned. She learned the truth about her identity, but another discovery stopped her from returning home. Someone had tried to destroy her life. The letters revealed that Emily had discovered financial crimes inside Whitmore Capital before the accident. She had uncovered evidence that several executives were secretly stealing from company accounts. Before she could expose them, she was followed, threatened, and pushed off the road. Charles felt his chest tighten as he read the names. One name appeared repeatedly: Daniel Whitmore, the nephew who had spent years standing beside him. The nephew who had comforted him after Emily's disappearance. The nephew who had slowly gained control over company operations. Charles looked across the courtroom. Daniel was gone. Security discovered him attempting to leave through a back exit. Within days, investigators uncovered hidden accounts, fake contracts, and years of financial manipulation. Daniel had planned to inherit the entire Whitmore fortune by convincing everyone Charles had no surviving family. But Daniel had underestimated one thing. Emily had protected proof. Before her death from illness 6 months earlier, Emily had prepared everything necessary to reveal the truth and protect her daughter. Lily was not an accident. She was the final piece of a promise. Charles visited Emily's grave with Lily standing beside him. For the first time in decades, tears fell from the billionaire's eyes. The world knew Charles Whitmore as a powerful businessman, but Lily saw something different. She saw a grandfather who finally found his family. Months later, the Whitmore Foundation announced its largest project ever, a nationwide program helping children who had lost parents and families struggling with injustice. Charles never cared about adding another building with his name on it. Instead, every project carried Emily's name. Daniel faced trial for fraud, conspiracy, and multiple criminal charges connected to the years of deception. The evidence was overwhelming. Former employees came forward, and the truth that had been hidden for decades finally reached the public. The fortune Daniel wanted so desperately never belonged to him. Charles changed his estate plans and created a trust for Lily, not because she was an heir to a billion-dollar empire, but because she was family. Years later, people still remember the day a little girl walked into a courtroom and changed the destiny of one of America's wealthiest men. Charles eventually stepped away from daily business operations. He spent his mornings teaching Lily about kindness, honesty, and courage. He showed her old photographs of Emily and told stories about a young woman who never stopped fighting for what was right. Lily kept the silver necklace around her neck. It was not a symbol of wealth. It was a reminder that love could survive time, distance, and even impossible loss. The billionaire who believed his family line had ended discovered something far greater than an heir. He found a reason to hope again. And the little girl who called him Dad gave him the one thing money could never buy: a second chance at family. Neighbors watched as the once lonely mansion became a place filled with laughter again. Employees who had feared Charles discovered a generous leader who valued people above profits. Lily grew up surrounded by stories of courage, compassion, and resilience. The world remembered the scandal, but Charles remembered the miracle. A missing daughter, a hidden granddaughter, and a stolen truth had transformed his final years into a journey of forgiveness. His greatest investment was never a company or fortune. It was the family he found when all hope seemed lost, forever changed.